Hello students. In our previous lecture, we have already discussed about the development of dicot embryo. But now today, again, we will discuss that embryo development in dicots through some of the diagrams. So this is the diagrammatic view of the embryo development in case of dicots. That this is the zygote which is present at the micropylar end. When it undergo transverse division after getting the nutrition from the endosperm, it will give rise to two cells, that is, one is the basal cell, this is the basal cell, or you can say suspensor cell. This is the basal cell, or you can say suspensor cell, and this cell is the embryonal cell. This is the embryonal cell. So this stage we can consider it as a pro-embryo stage. So this basal cell or the suspensor cell, it is formed towards the micropylar end, and this embryonal cell is formed towards the chalazal end. This basal cell, it will also undergo repeated mitotic division, and this embryonal cell also undergo repeated mitotic division. So when this embryonal cell undergo divisions, then it give rise to the globular embryo. This is the globular embryo. This is the identification of this, that it becomes globule-like, so it is globular in position. And this is the suspensor cell. This is the suspensor. Now this suspensor cell get divided into 6 to 10 celled suspensor, whose micropylar and it will swells up and give rise to hostorial cell, and this hostorial cell, it will helps in the absorption of nutrition from the food laden endosperm. Now after the formation of globular stage, repeated mitotic divisions will be carried out into that embryonal cell, and finally forms the heart-shaped stage. Repeated mitotic divisions carried out into the heart-shaped embryo, and finally the mature embryo is formed, which is just curved in nature, that is torpedo stage is formed. So here the two cotyledons are formed. This is the plumule part and this is the radical part, and we can say this is the embryonal axis. This is the embryonal axis. So it contains this embryonal axis, which is also known as tigellum, and these two cotyledons. At the one end, this tigellum terminates into plumule, and at another end it terminates into the radical part. So this is the diagrammatic view of the dicot embryo, in which this radical part, it is being covered by this root cap. This is the hypocotyle part. These are the two cotyledons, and this is the plumule part. This is plumule part, and this is the radical part, and this is the hypocotyle part. This is the tigellum, and this is the hypocotyle part, and this is the epicotyle part, which terminates into plumule. Now the monocot embryo. Though the seeds of dicots and monocots, they may greatly differ with each other, but the early stages of the embryo in monocot also, it is very similar to that of dicots. So we can say that the early stages of the embryo development, they are similar in both dicots and monocots. There are certain differences in the complete formation of the monocot embryo, so we will have a brief view over that embryo, that is the grass embryo mentioned in the NCERT. This is the diagrammatic sketch of this grass embryo. So in case of the grass embryo, the single cotyledon, as it is monocot embryo, the single cotyledon is formed, and that single cotyledon is known as scutellum. Very important. That scutellum is thin and membranous, and it is shield shaped, which is situated towards the one side or the lateral side of the embryonal axis. See in this diagram, this is the scutellum part, this is the scutellum part which is present towards the single side or the lateral side of this embryonal axis. This is the embryonal axis, and only on the lateral or the single side this scutellum is present. So the single cotyledon which is present in the grass embryo is known as scutellum. This is the epiblast, and this epiblast, this shows the reduced cotyledon. This represents the reduced cotyledon. So what is epiblast? Epiblast, it refers to or it represents the reduced cotyledon. So both the cotyledons initially start forming, but one cotyledon being completely formed and termed as scutellum, but the other cotyledon is being degenerated or it being reduced, that is known as epiblast. At its lower end, this is the lower end, so at its lower end the embryonal axis has a radical part. This is the radical part, and this radical part is covered by this root cap. This radical and the root cap, they are being enclosed by undifferentiated sheath or a protective covering which is known as coleorhiza. This is coleorhiza. So this coleorhiza, it is a undifferentiated or a protective sheath that covers this root cap as well as this radical part. Now the portion of the embryonal axis that is above the level of the attachment of scutellum is known as epicotyle. This is the epicotyle, above the level of the cotyledon, that is known as epicotyle. Now the epicotyle, it has a shoot apex. This epicotyle, this have a shoot apex, and this shoot apex, it is enclosed in a hollow foliar structure. The shoot apex and the leaf primordia, this is being surrounded by a certain protective covering or protective sheath which is known as coleoptile. Very important. So coleoptile, it protects the shoot apex, while the coleorhiza is undifferentiated protective sheath that protects or covers the radical and root cap part. So this is all about the grass embryo. Now there are certain post-fertilization changes. After the completion of the post-fertilization events in a plant, there are certain post-fertilization changes that which part get converted into which part. So short type answer questions can be asked from this part also, that the after post-fertilization, that ovary being converted into fruit part, ovule is being converted into seed part, ovary wall it converted into pericarp or a fruit wall, integument converted into seed coat, outer integument and inner integument, then outer integument is known as testa, that is the outer seed coat, and if we are talking about inner integument, that is it will convert into inner seed coat known as tegmen. Very important. Nucellus, it usually consumes or it will usually degenerates, but in sometimes in some of the seeds it remains present as a residues, and that is known as, that residual or remnant is known as perisperm. Synergids and antibodials, they are also degenerated after the fertilization process. Hilum of the ovule. What is hilum? We have already studied the hilum, where when the funicle get attached to a body of the ovule, that is the nucellus, then that point of attachment or that junction is known as hilum. That hilum of the ovule is considered as hilum of seed, but it is present in form of a scar, so it is the scar on the seed. Funicle, that is the stalk of the ovule, it is the stalk of the seed. It may be left or it may be broken. Micropyle of the ovule considered as the micropyle of the seed after post fertilization, and chalaza of the ovule considered as the chalaza of the seed. Now there are certain ploidies. If there are the sporophytic tissues, then the ploidy will be diploid. There are certain examples of sporophytic tissues, that is the zygote, embryo, radicle, plumule, cotyledon, nucellus, integument, microspore mother cell, megaspore mother cell, ovary wall, fruit wall, carpel, sepals, petals, stamens, leaf, root, stem, all these are diploid in nature. Well, if we are talking about the gametophytic tissues, then they may be microspore, or you can say pollen grain. They are haploid in nature. Tube cell, generative cell are also haploid in nature. Gametes, either it may be male gamete or it may be female gamete, they are also haploid in nature. Megaspore, haploid in nature. Embryo sac as a whole is a haploid in nature. Then the synergid, antipodal, egg cell and pollen nuclei, they are also the haploid in nature. If we are talking about the ploidy of the secondary nucleus, then it is 2n, that is diploid. If we are going to talk about PEN, that is primary endosperm nucleus, or PEC, that is primary endosperm cell, then it is also triploid in nature. And the mature endosperm that is formed from PEC, that is also known as triploid in nature, that is 3n. These are the certain parts of the plants which are referred or equivalent to some other things, that is the stamen is equivalent to microsporophyll, we have already discussed this. Carpel is equivalent to that of megasporophyll. Pollen sac, where the microspores are formed, that's why it is equivalent to that of microsporangium. Ovule, inside which the megaspores are formed, so it is equivalent to that of integumented megasporangium. Egg or ovum is a female gamete. Sperm or a male gamete is also known as a microgamete. Germinating pollen grain, that is the male gametophyte, and female or male gametophyte is the embryo sac. So this is the complete overview of the life cycle which we have discussed in the whole chapter, that how the life cycle proceeds into the angiospermic plant. Suppose if this is the sporophytic plant of angiosperm, sporophytic plant means it is diploid plant body, then this flower, it contains the male reproductive part, that is known as the stamen, and that stamen have filament and anther, and it contains the carpel part, that carpel contains the stigma, style and ovary part. Inside this anther, the pollen sac are formed, and inside that pollen sac microspore mother cells are formed. So inside this pollen sac, this is the microsporangium. Inside this microsporangium, or you can say this microsporangium, which is equivalent to pollen sac, these microspore mother cells are formed. And when these microspore mother cells, when undergo meiosis, then they give rise to 4 microspore. Each of the microspore mother cell, when undergo meiosis, it give rise to 4 haploid microspores. 4 haploid microspores. And when these haploid microspores, they become thick walled, they are termed as pollen grains. So haploid pollen grains are formed. Similar is the case with the female reproductive system, that inside this ovule, which is termed as megasporangium, megaspore mother cell is present, and if this megaspore mother cell undergo meiosis, it give rise to 4 megaspores. Out of 4 megaspores, 3 megaspores degenerate and 1 functional, that is the chalazal megaspore, it will undergo repeated mitotic divisions and it give rise to the female gametophyte, that is the embryo sac. So this is the embryo sac is formed. This is the embryo sac. This embryo sac contains 3 antipodal cells towards the chalazal end, 3 cells in which the 2 are the synergid and 1 is egg cell. So this is the complete egg apparatus, and the 2 pollen nuclei which is present in this central cell. So once this pollen grain matures and converted into the male gametophyte, then that male gametophyte contains the 2 male gametes, and when these 2 male gametes through pollen tube enter inside the embryo sac, one of the male gamete, it fertilizes the egg cell and give rise to the zygote, and the second male gamete, it will fuse with these secondary nuclei, and this secondary nucleus, when fuses with the second male gamete, it will give rise to the PEN, and finally that PEN inside this PEC get converted into endosperm. This endosperm, it provide nutrition to the zygote, and when zygote receiving the nutrition from the endosperm, this zygote undergo divisions and finally converted into embryo after passing through various stages of pro-embryo, globular stage, heart-shaped stage, and finally the mature or a torpedo stage. So this embryo is formed, and when this embryo is formed inside the ovule, then that ovule is termed as the seed, and when that seed germinates, finally this complete plant body, that is the sporophytic diploid plant body of the angiosperm, is formed. So this is all about the post fertilization events in case of flowering plants. As we have already discussed about the development of endosperm and about the development of embryo, now here we are going to start about the angiospermic seed. In angiospermic seed, first of all we take the structure of seed. In angiosperm, seed is considered as the final product of the sexual reproduction. As you all know that angiospermic plants, they are the spermatophytes, means they are the seed bearing plants. So in angiosperm, seed is considered as the final product of the sexual reproduction. Now the fertilized ovule is known as seed. So from where the seed is formed, that once the ovule get fertilized, that fertilized ovule is considered as the seed. Very important line, that what is seed? Seed is nothing but the fertilized ovule. In other words, we can say that seed is a mature fertilized integumented megasporangium, because we consider that ovule, it is a integumented megasporangium. So we also said this, that seed is a mature fertilized integumented megasporangium. All those structures which are present inside the seed coat, they are collectively termed as kernel. So what is kernel? All those structures which are inside the seed coat, all those structures are known as kernel. Now a typical mature seed, it is composed of three main parts, and those three main parts are, first one is the seed coat, second one is the embryo, that includes the cotyledons as well as the embryonal axis. We have discussed it in our previous lecture, that what is embryo and what are the main parts of that embryo, and those main parts are cotyledons and embryonal axis. And the third part of the seed, that is endosperm. So these are the three main parts, that is seed coat, embryo and endosperm. These are the three main parts of the typical mature seed. Now about the types of seeds. As we all know that endosperm is the nutritive tissue. This endosperm is the nutritive tissue which provide nutrition to the developing embryo. So what is endosperm? It is the nutritive tissue which may be present or absent in case of seeds. So the angiospermic seeds, they are classified on the basis of presence or absence of endosperm in the seeds. So there are two types of seeds on the basis of presence or absence of endosperm. Now first category is the non-endospermic seeds. These non-endospermic seeds are also known as ex-albuminous seeds and non-albuminous seeds. Now what are non-endospermic seeds? Such type of seeds are those which do not have endosperm at maturity. Means in such type of seeds, the endosperm is totally consumed. So such type of seeds in which the endosperm is absent or totally consumed at maturity, such type of seeds are non-endospermic, or you can say ex-albuminous, or you can say non-albuminous seeds. So the endospermic tissue, which when get completely consumed during the development of an embryo, then in that case the absorbed food material from the endosperm, they get stored into the cotyledons. So in such cases, the cotyledons, they are large and fleshy in nature. So in those plants where the non-endospermic seeds are present, in such cases the cotyledons have the ability to store the food, and that's why their cotyledons, they are large and fleshy in nature. Now there are certain examples in which the non-endospermic seeds are present. For example, Capsula. It is dicot plant, and almost most of the dicots they are having the non-endospermic seeds. Some of the important examples of non-endospermic seeds or the dicot plants in which the non-endospermic seeds are present, they are gram, pea, bean, groundnut. But there is one exception also, that is the castor. Castor is although dicot plant, but the seeds in the castor they are albuminous, or you can say endospermic in nature. Very important exception, that in case of castor the seeds are endospermic in nature. Now second category or second type of seeds on the basis of endosperm, that is the endospermic or albuminous seeds. Now those seeds which retain a part of endosperm as it is not completely consumed during the embryo development, then such type of seeds are known as endospermic or albuminous type of seeds. In this type of seeds, food gets stored inside the endosperm. So the endospermic tissue in these seeds, they are utilized during the germination of the seed, and their cotyledons they are thin and membranous in nature. Remember this point, that in the case of endospermic seeds or the plants in which the endospermic seeds are present, the cotyledons they are thin and membranous in nature. Well, we have already seen that those plants which are having the non-endospermic seeds, in such cases the cotyledons they are large and fleshy in nature, because in that case endosperm is totally consumed and cotyledons have to store the food. But in such type of seeds, the stored or the food material get stored inside the endosperm, and so the cotyledons they are thin and membranous in nature. Now there are certain examples where the endospermic seeds are present. Most of the monocots plants they are bearing the endospermic seeds. For example, you can say wheat, rice, coconut, barley, maize. All of these plants are monocots. So all these plants they contain the endospermic seeds. But here is also one of the exception, that is orchid. Although this orchid it is a monocot plant, orchid is a monocot. It is a monocot plant, but their seeds they are non-endospermic in nature. So remember the two exceptions, that castor is although a dicot plant, but their seeds are, castor is a dicot plant but their seeds are endospermic in nature, while orchid, which is a monocot plant, but the seeds of the orchids they are non-endospermic in nature. These are some of the structures of some of the seeds. This is the diagram of the seeds of bean. This is the second diagram of castor seeds. These are the diagrams of gram seeds, and this is the diagram of maize seed. Important diagram, you can consider this diagram can come in board exam also for labeling purpose. So remember the labeling. The outer side of this maize seed, it is pericarp which get fused with the seed coat. Then this part is known as the endosperm and this part is the embryo part. So this whole endosperm, it is being surrounded by proteinaceous covering which is known as aleurone layer. Important point, that this endosperm is completely surrounded by a proteinaceous layer that is known as aleurone layer. Since the endosperm is triploid in nature, this aleurone layer is also triploid in nature. This is the embryo part, and embryo consists of cotyledon as well as embryonal axis. Since it is a monocot plant, so it contains only single cotyledon, and that single cotyledon is known as scutellum. The other cotyledon is reduced, and that reduced cotyledon sometimes called epiblast. This is the embryonal axis, in which this is the plumule part and this part is the radical part. That plumule part is being protected by a undifferentiated layer or protective layer, that is known as coleoptile, and that radical part, it is being protected by a covering that is known as coleorhiza. So the diagram of maize among all these is very, very important for board exams as well as for competitive exams. Now in the fertilized ovule, as we can say that fertilized ovule get converted into seed, so the integuments of the ovules, they are also converted into a protective seed coats and they become hard and tough. That's why they provide protection to the seed. The outer seed coat and the inner seed coat, outer integument converted into outer seed coat, inner integument converted into inner seed coat. That outer seed coat is known as testa and inner seed coat is known as tegmen, as we have already discussed in our previous classes. Now the micropyle, it remains as such, just like a small pore in the seed coat in the seed also, and this micropyle, it facilitates the entry of oxygen and water into the seed during the germination. As the seed matures, its water content, it gets reduced and the seed becomes relatively dry, 10 to 15% moisture by mass. So once the seed gets mature, its water content goes on decreasing and then the seeds, they become relatively dry. The general metabolic activity of the embryo, it gets slows down, and so the embryo, they may enter into a state of inactivity, and that state of inactivity of the seed is known as dormancy, or you can say seed dormancy. If the favorable conditions, they are available, favorable conditions means the presence of adequate moisture, adequate oxygen and suitable temperature, then those seeds, they comes out from the dormancy and they can germinate. Now what are the advantages of the seed? Seeds, they offer the several advantages to the angiosperms. As we all know that in case of other plants, that may be thallophytes, bryophytes, pteridophytes, or even in the lower gymnosperms, both pollination and fertilization processes, they require water. But if we are talking about the angiosperms, these reproductive processes, that is the pollination and fertilization, they are independent of water. So this is one of the advantage in case of angiosperm, that is the independency on water for the processes of pollination and fertilization. But the advantage which is more than this independent of water, that dominant advantage of the in case of angiosperm is the seed formation. That seed formation, it is more dominant advantage over this independency on the water, because this seed formation, it is more dependable, or you can say more reliable in case of angiosperms. Why this seed formation is more dependable, or you can say more reliable in case of angiosperm? Then we must say that these seeds, they have better strategies for the dispersal, and as they have the better strategies for the dispersal, they help to create new habitat and help the species to colonize into other areas. So I think you understand that seed formation in angiosperm is dominant advantage as compared to that of independency on water. Why? Because the seed formation is more reliable in angiosperms, as the seeds have the better strategies for the dispersal to the new habitat, and thus helps the species to colonize themselves in the other areas. Other advantages of the seeds is that they provide nourishment to the young seedlings. This is also another advantage of seeds in case of angiosperm. The hard seed coat which is present in the seed, it provides protection to the young embryo. So the seed coat, it provides protection to the young embryo. Seed is the product of sexual reproduction, so they generate the new genetic combinations which leads to the variation. So seed also played a vital role in the production of variations among the various species of the angiosperm. So these are the certain important advantages of the seed formation in case of angiosperms, which is considered as more dominant advantage as compared to that of the independency of water in case of some reproductive processes in angiosperms. Seed is also considered as one of the bases of the agriculture. It is also one of the advantage. Dehydration and dormancy of the mature seeds, they are considered as crucial for the storage of seeds. If the seeds, they get appropriate amount of water and they do not undergo dormant period, then such seeds can easily germinate and we can't able to store them. So for the storage of seeds, dehydration and dormancy, they are very crucial. And if we want to, why we want to store the seeds? Because these storage of seeds, it can be used for food purpose and also to raise the crop in the next season. So storage of the seeds is very important, and for the storage of seeds, dehydration and dormancy is required, or they are crucial, because the storage of seeds are important for the food throughout the year as well as to raise the crops into the next season. Now, how long do the seeds remain alive after they are being dispersed? So answer is here. The period, it can varies greatly, means how much time they remain alive after their dispersal. Then we must say that this period, it varies greatly. In few species, the seeds, they lose the viability within few months, but in some other species we find that they can remain viable or they can remain alive for several years. Some of the seeds, they can remain alive for hundreds of years also. Hundreds of years they have the viability. There are certain records of very old viable seeds also. Some of the examples, that is the oldest one. The oldest is that of lupine, that is Lupinus arcticus, which have been archaeologically excavated from the Arctic tundra region. And these seeds, they germinate and flower after an estimated record of about 10,000 years of dormancy. Another important example is a recent record of 2,000 years old viable seeds of the date palm, that is Phoenix dactylifera, discovered during the archaeological excavations at King Herod's palace near Dead Sea. So we must say that the seeds, they remain alive after their dispersal. In some of the species, they may lose the viability after few months, but in large number of species, they may be viable for several years, and some of the seeds, they remain alive for hundreds of years. And these are the two important examples. One is the oldest one, that is Lupinus arcticus, which are excavated from the Arctic tundra region, and another important example, that is the seeds, viable seeds of date palm, that is Phoenix dactylifera, that have been obtained during the archaeological excavations from King Herod's palace near the Dead Sea. Now, can you think of some plants in which the fruits, they contain very large number of seeds? Yes, answer will be yes. Then what are those examples? One example is the orchid fruits. These orchid fruits is one of the such category that each of its fruits, it contain thousands of tiny seeds. Means orchid fruits, and each of the fruit of orchid, it contain thousands of tiny seeds. Similar is the case of the fruits of some of the parasitic species such as Orobanche and Striga. So the fruits of Orobanche and Striga, which are both are the parasitic species, in those species, in both of these species also, the fruits, they may contain thousands of seeds. This is the diagram of orchid fruits. This is striga fruits, Orobenki fruits. Now about the fruits. As we know that ovules when mature, they are converted into seeds, and then the ovary, it gets converted or develops into a fruit. That is, the transformation of ovules into the seeds and ovary into the fruit proceeds simultaneously. The wall of the ovary, it develops into the wall of the fruit, and that is known as pericarp. Important. What is pericarp? Pericarp is the fruit wall. And from where this pericarp is formed? When the ovary gets converted into fruit, then the ovary wall, it gets converted into fruit wall, and that fruit wall is known as pericarp. Now there are certain fruits which may be fleshy in nature. For example, guava, orange, mango, and there are lots of examples. So such type of fruits, they are the fleshy fruits, and they may be the dry fruits also. For example, groundnut and mustard. Many fruits, they have evolved the mechanism for the dispersal of seeds also. These are some figures of fleshy fruits having mango, guava and orange, and these are the dry fruits of mustard and groundnut. In most of the plants, by the time the fruit develops from the ovary, other floral parts, they get degenerate or fall off. So, however, in few of the species such as apple, strawberry, cashew, the thalamus is responsible, or it contributes to the formation of fruit, and such type of fruits are known as false fruits. So what are false fruits? False fruits are those fruits which are developed from any plant part along with the ovary. Then such type of fruits are known as false fruits. And what are true fruits? Then you must say that true fruits are those fruits which gets developed from the ovary part, because the ovary at maturity gets converted into fruit. Then such type of fruits are the true fruits. For example, mango is a true fruit, and apple, strawberry, cashew, these are considered as the false fruits. So this is the basic difference in between the true and the false fruits. There's those fruits which gets developed only from the ovary, then such type of fruits are true fruits, and those fruits which develop from any plant part along with the ovary, for example thalamus, then such type of fruits are false fruits. So this is the apple, this is one of the false fruit, and these are the mangoes, which are the examples of true fruits. Now, although in most of the species fruits are the results of the fertilization, as you all know that when the fertilization is being completed, then ovule get converted to seed and the ovary get converted into fruit. So we can say that fruit is the result of the fertilization. Means although in most of the species fruits, they are being developed due to the fertilization process, but there are certain species in which the fruits, they develop without fertilization, and such type of fruits which get developed without fertilization, they are known as parthenocarpic fruits. So what are parthenocarpic fruits? Those fruits which are being developed without the fertilization, then such type of fruits are known as parthenocarpic fruits. One of the important example of parthenocarpic fruit is banana. This parthenocarpy, it can be induced through the application of growth hormones, and such fruits, they are the seedless fruits. This is the pictorial of parthenocarpic fruit, that is banana. Now another very important topic, that is apomixis and polyembryony. So this apomixis or polyembryony, it comes under the heading of asexual reproduction. As you all know, what is asexual reproduction? Then the reproduction in which the new individuals are formed without the fusion of gametes, then that is known as asexual reproduction. So apomixis, it is a form of asexual reproduction. We can say that apomixis is a form of asexual reproduction, that mimics the sexual reproduction. Very important line of NCERT, that is apomixis. It is a form of sexual reproduction, but it mimics the sexual reproduction, because the structures which are formed in the sexual reproduction, they are also being formed in the apomixis also, but that apomixis is without the meiosis and without the fertilization. That's why we can term it as a asexual mode of reproduction. So it is a asexual mode of reproduction, but it mimics the sexual reproduction. Now the some of the species such as Asteraceae and grasses, they have evolved some special mechanisms to produce the seeds without fertilization, and that process is called the apomixis. So what is apomixis? This apomixis is a Greek term in which the apo means without and mixes means mixings. So apomixis term, it was first of all suggested by Winkler, and it means the without the mixing of the gametes. So what is apomixis? That is without mixing of the gametes. The apomixis, it is characterized by quick multiplication and production of genetically similar plants from the single parent, and such offspring which are formed by a sexual mode of reproduction, they are identical in nature and they are referred as clones, and each member of the clone, they are termed as ramete. So what are clones and what are rametes? You understand that the offsprings which are developed from a sexual mode of reproduction, they are identical in nature, and those offsprings are termed as clones, and each member of the clone, that is known as the ramete. Now there are several ways of development of apomictic seeds. One development or one process is diplospory. So what is diplospory? In some of the species, when the diploid egg cell is formed without the reductional division and that develops into the embryo without the fertilization, then that is known as diplospory. So this diplospory, it deals with the formation of diploid embryos from diploid egg cell without meiosis and without fertilization, means it is apomixis. So such type of embryos, they are considered as apomictic embryos. Very important example of apomixis. Another important example of apomixis is polyembryony, in which we can see it in citrus plants and in some of the varieties of mango. More often we can say that in many citrus and mango varieties, some of the nucellar cells. What are nucellar cells? That is the nucellus part, the body of the ovule. That nucellar cells surrounding the embryo sac, they start dividing and protrude into the embryo sac and develops the embryos. So such type of seed is formed that contains large number of embryos. So occurrence of each ovule, it contains many embryos, means occurrence of more than one embryo in a seed, that is referred as polyembryony. So what is polyembryony? That is the occurrence of more than one embryo in a seed, that is being referred as a polyembryony. I think you must understand that these are the two crucial examples of apomixis. One is the diplospory, in which the diploid embryos are formed from the diploid egg cell without meiosis and without fertilization. And another one is if the nucellar cells, they start dividing to form the embryos, and finally those embryos get protrude inside the embryo sac. So in such cases, the single seed, it contains large number of embryos, or you can say there will be the occurrence of more than one embryos inside a single seed, then that is known as the polyembryony, and that polyembryony can be found in many of the citrus and mango varieties. So both of these examples regarding polyembryony are important. Now what is the importance of apomixis? Hybrid varieties, as you all know, hybrid varieties, they have more vigor, more ability to produce the offspring. So hybrid varieties of the several of our food and vegetable crops, they are extensively cultivated nowadays. Now the cultivation of those hybrids, they has tremendously increased the productivity. But one of the major problem of such hybrid is that the hybrid seeds, they have to be produced every year. This is the major problem of the hybrid, that such hybrid seeds, they have to be produced every year. And if the seeds get collected from those hybrids and they are sown, then the plants in the progeny will segregate and do not maintain the hybrid characters. So this is the drawback of the hybrid seeds. One drawback is that hybrid seeds, they have to be produced every year, and the another drawback is if the collected seeds of those hybrids, they are sown, then the plants in the progeny, they will segregate and do not maintain the hybrid character or hybrid vigor. So the production of the hybrid seeds, another drawback is the production of hybrid seeds, it is also costly, and hence the cost of the hybrid seeds, it become too expensive for the farmers. So hybrid varieties, when developed from the simple seeds, not taking from the apomictic seeds, then they are having the certain drawbacks. One of the problem is that they have to produce every year. Second problem is that the plants which are being developed, their progenies will be segregated and do not maintain the hybrid vigor and the characters. And third one is that such type of hybrid seeds, they are costly. But if these hybrids, they are made into apomictics, means if we are using the apomixes in case of the production of the hybrids, then it is useful. How it is useful then? If these hybrids are made into apomixtic, there is no segregation of characters. It is important. Then there will be no segregation of the characters in the hybrid progeny. So if we are taking the apomictic genes to produce the hybrids, then there will be no segregation of the characters in the hybrid progeny. Then the farmers, they can keep using the hybrid seeds to raise the new crop year after year, and they does not have to buy the hybrid seeds every year. This is the one important advantage of hybrid progenies developed from the apomictics. Now, because of the importance of apomixes in the hybrid seed industry, active researches are going on in many laboratories around the world so as to understand the genetics of the apomixes and thus transfer the apomictic genes into the hybrid varieties. So in this lecture, we had already discussed about the embryo development in case of both dicots as well as in case of monocots. We already discussed here about the seeds, type of seeds, that is endospermic and non-endospermic seeds, and what are the advantages of seeds to us, that is the major advantages of the seeds. In brief, here we also discuss about the fruits, types of fruits, that is true fruits and false fruits. And finally, here we discuss about the apomixes. Apomixes, that means without the mixing of the gametes, and that apomixes is just a sexual mode of reproduction which mimics the sexual mode of reproduction. And there are a lot of advantages of this apomixes. That means this apomixes, it have importance in case of hybrid seed industry. Hybrid seed industry have very much advantage about this apomixes. Thank you.